Kale walked alone across the ruins of an old alien city, his boots crunching against broken stones and twisted metal. The air was dry, filled with the faint smell of dust that never left these empty streets. The sky above was dim, a pale shade of blue, as if even the sun had grown tired of shining on this forgotten place. He was not a hero, not a soldier, not even a man with a grand dream. Kyle was just a drifter, someone who traveled from one world to another, trading scraps and odd pieces of technology to survive. His jacket was worn, his pack nearly empty, and his eyes constantly moved around, searching for anything of value. This ruined city had once been alive, long before humans even knew of the stars. The alien race that lived here had disappeared centuries ago. Their towers were broken, their machines rusted, and their once bright symbols faded on the walls. For scavengers like Kale, it was a place of mystery, but also opportunity. He moved carefully, pushing aside piles of debris, sometimes stopping when he thought he heard the echo of his own steps. There were stories of people who entered ruins and never returned. Some claimed that strange machines still slept in the shadows. Others whispered about curses. Kyle did not believe in curses. He believed in hunger, in cold nights, and in the fact that he needed to find something to sell before he ran out of supplies. At last, he came upon a collapsed building that looked different from the others. Its entrance was marked with symbols that curved like flames. Most people would have walked away, but Kale felt drawn inside. He ducked under the fallen archway and stepped into the dim interior. The inside was quiet, too quiet. Dust floated in, the air like tiny stars, disturbed only by his movement. In the center of the room, half buried in rubble, was an object that caught his eye. At first he thought it was just a piece of scrap metal. But when he brushed away the stones and dirt, he saw the shape of a blade. It was a sword. Not like the sleek energy weapons carried by mercenaries or the heavy rifles of soldiers, but an old-fashioned blade. Its surface was dull, its edge chipped, and the handle covered with rust. It looked fragile, as if it might break the moment it was used. Yet there was something strange about it, strange enough to make Kale hesitate before touching it. He stared at the sword for a long moment. Why? Would a simple sword be hidden in a chamber like this? The aliens of this city had been far beyond such primitive weapons. They built starships, floating cities, and machines that could change entire worlds. A sword did not belong here. Still, Kale's curiosity was stronger than his caution. Slowly, he reached out his hand. His fingers brushed the rusty handle, and a faint chill ran up his arm. For a second, he thought the blade pulsed with a dim light, but when he blinked, it looked ordinary again. He laughed at himself. "Just my imagination," he muttered. With a firm grip, Kale lifted the sword. It was heavier than he expected, yet it balanced well in his hand. The rust flaked away in small pieces as he moved it. For a moment, he thought of old stories from Earth, tales of kings who pulled swords from stones and were crowned as rulers. He smiled at the thought. If only things were that simple here, he thought. But as soon as he raised the blade, something happened. Far above the city, hidden satellites that had slept for centuries flickered awake. Invisible signals spread across the sky like ripples in water. They traveled faster than light, racing from star to star. Across distant worlds, machines stirred and forgotten systems came alive. The message was simple, written in a language older than Kale's species. The Imperial Blade has been claimed. The Emperor has returned. Kale, of course, knew nothing about this. He simply held the sword, looking at it with both amusement and disappointment. It was no treasure, no powerful weapon, just a rusty relic. Still, he decided to keep it. Scrap dealers sometimes paid well for unusual items, especially ones with alien markings. He strapped it to his pack and continued his search, unaware that the galaxy itself had begun to turn its gaze toward him. As Kale walked deeper into the ruins, he felt a strange energy in the air, like a low hum vibrating through the stones. He told himself it was nothing, just nerves, just the silence playing tricks on him. Yet somewhere inside, a part of him felt that his life had just changed, though he could not explain why. Far away, In the control rooms of alien fleets, alarms began to sound. On worlds where people still whispered about the old empire, priests fell to their knees in shock. On hidden bases, warlords clenched their fists in anger. The sword had chosen. The emperor, long lost, had returned, whether he knew it or not, and Kale, the simple drifter who only wanted enough food to survive another day, had no idea that with a single careless act, he had awakened an empire. Kale left the ruined chamber with the rusty sword strapped across his back. To him, it was just another odd relic, maybe worth a few credits if he found the right buyer. He walked through the cracked streets, kicking loose stones as he searched for more salvage. Yet something felt different. The city seemed less silent now, as though the shadows were watching him. He tried to shake off the feeling. It's just a blade, he told himself. Nothing more. But far above the planet, things were not so simple. The instant Kale lifted the sword, old machines hidden in orbit had awakened. Satellites, which had slept for hundreds of years, lit up with strange blue light. They began to hum with energy, sending signals that leapt across star systems. The message traveled quickly, carried by ancient networks that no human had ever known existed. Across the galaxy, lights blinked on in forgotten temples. Alarms rang in military bases, and scholars stared at glowing screens in disbelief. Everywhere, the same message appeared in bold alien script. The Imperial Blade has been claimed. The Emperor has returned. On the world of Nathra, a group of alien priests gathered in their high temple. For centuries, they had prayed for the return of the lost Emperor. They wore long robes of silver and gold, their eyes glowing faintly as they read the holy texts carved on their walls. When the signal came, they dropped to their knees. The eldest among them, a wrinkled figure with 4 arms, raised his voice. "It is true," he whispered. "The One has risen. The Emperor lives." Far away in the cold void of space, fleets stirred. On the command deck of a massive warship, Warlord Veyrath slammed his fist against the arm of his throne-like chair. His eyes, sharp and filled with fire, glared at the message flashing across his screens. For years he had ruled sections of the galaxy by force, claiming to be the rightful protector of the Empire's memory. Now this signal threatened everything. "Find the one who holds the blade," Veyrath ordered his captains. His voice carried power, echoing through the steel halls. "If he is alive, bring him to me. If he resists, destroy him." Back on the ruined planet, Kyle remained unaware of all this. He was busy digging through piles of metal, searching for something he could trade. Yet even he began to notice signs that something strange was happening. The sky seemed to flicker. Strange lights passed overhead, too fast to be stars, too silent to be ordinary ships. Once he thought he heard a low hum vibrating in the ruins, like the echo of some ancient machine waking up. He paused, hand resting on the sword's handle, and listened. The hum faded, leaving only silence behind. Kyle shook his head. "I've been alone too long," he muttered, hearing things now. But he was not alone. In the shadows of the ruins, hidden eyes followed him. A small group of mercenaries had landed on the planet after intercepting the signal. Their scanners told them the exact location of the sword. They crept closer, moving carefully between broken walls, their weapons glowing faintly in the dusk. Kale felt uneasy. He could not explain why, but his instincts warned him that danger was near. He decided to leave the ruins and head back to his camp before darkness fully covered the land. He slung his pack over his shoulder and started toward the broken archway that led outside. Just before he left, a voice called out, "You should not carry that sword, human." Kyle froze. The voice was deep, calm, and carried the weight of centuries. He turned slowly and saw an old alien standing in the doorway of another ruined hall. The alien was tall and thin, his skin pale like stone, with glowing blue eyes that seemed to pierce through Kale. He leaned on a staff, but there was strength hidden in his posture. Kyle frowned. "It's just a rusty weapon," he said. "I'm keeping it because I might sell it." The alien stepped closer, his gaze fixed on the blade. "That is no simple weapon. It is the Imperial blade lost for ages. Do you know what you have done? By lifting it? Kyle blinked in confusion. What I've done? I just picked it up, that's all. The alien's eyes narrowed. The moment you touched it, the stars were told. The signal is already spreading. Armies will come for you, some to bow, others to kill. You have woken the Empire, human. Kyle laughed, though uneasily. Empire? Me? I think you're mistaking me for someone else. But before the alien could answer, a sharp noise split the silence. A blast of energy struck the wall beside Kale, burning a deep mark into the stone. He spun around and saw figures emerging from the shadows. Mercenaries, with sleek armor and glowing rifles. There he is, one shouted. The Blade Bearer! Kale's heart pounded. Blade Bearer, you mean me? The old alien raised his staff and stood firm. Stay behind me, human. They will not have the sword. Kale ducked as another blast of energy whizzed past. Instinctively, he pulled the rusty sword from his back. It felt heavy and strange in his hands, yet it gave him a sense of safety. The mercenaries laughed when they saw it. An old piece of metal? One sneered. You think that will save you? But as Kale raised the sword, something changed. The dull edge flickered faintly with light, and when the next blast came, he swung without thinking. The energy bolt split apart in mid-air, dissolving harmlessly into sparks. Kale stared at the blade in shock. The mercenaries paused too, their confidence shaken. The old alien gave a thin smile. Now you see, human. That sword chose you. Kale's mind raced. He had wanted nothing more than to survive another day, to find scraps and move on. Yet now, mercenaries hunted him. An alien spoke of empires, and a rusty blade cut through energy itself. He wanted to deny it, to throw the sword away and walk out of this nightmare. But deep inside, he knew life would never be the same again. Far above, warlords prepared their fleets, priests spread the word of prophecy, and soldiers sharpened their weapons. Across the stars, hope and fear rose together. And at the center of it all stood Kale, the wanderer who had picked up the rusty sword, not knowing he was now considered the long-lost emperor. Kale's hands trembled as he gripped the sword. The mercenaries were still there, their weapons aimed, but their eyes showed hesitation. None of them had expected a simple human with a rusty blade to block energy fire. The glowing sparks, still, faded in the air where Kale had swung, leaving silence behind. The old alien stood beside him, his staff raised. You see now, human, this is not just a weapon. It is a crown in steel. Kale shook his head. I don't want crowns. I don't want battles. I just want to leave. But leaving was no longer an option. The mercenaries regrouped, their leader stepping forward. His armor was black, his visor glowing red. He raised his rifle slowly. Careful not to make sudden moves. Hand it over, the leader said. His voice was calm but sharp. The sword does not belong to you. It belongs to those who can rule. Kale tightened his grip. I don't even know what this thing is, but it's mine now. If you want it, you'll have to take it. The mercenaries opened fire. Bolts of burning energy shot across the ruins, lighting up the broken walls. Kyle swung the sword again without thinking. The blade moved with strange ease, guiding his arm, pulling him into the right motion. Each strike split the bolts apart, scattering them like harmless sparks. The mercenary shouted in surprise. It really is the blade. He carries it. Before they could attack again, the old alien slammed his staff on the ground. A pulse of blue light spread outward, knocking the mercenaries off their feet. Go, human, he shouted. We cannot fight them all. We must escape. Kyle didn't argue. Together they ran through the ruins, jumping over fallen stones and broken metal beams. The mercenaries chased after them, but the ruins twisted like a maze, and soon the sounds of pursuit faded behind. They stopped only when they reached the edge of the city, where Kyle had left his small camp. Breathing hard, Kyle dropped onto a broken rock. The sword rested across his knees, glowing faintly as if alive. He stared at it in disbelief. What is happening to me? The old alien sat across from him, his glowing blue eyes steady. What has happened is destiny. You are the one chosen by the blade. The last Emperor's blood runs in your veins. Kale laughed bitterly. Emperor? Me? I'm nobody. I was born on a small world where people work in factories and barely survive. My parents died young. I've been alone most of my life. I don't even know how to lead myself, let alone an empire. The alien's voice was calm but firm. It does not matter what you were. The blade recognizes only truth. When you lifted it, the stars themselves declared you as emperor. There will be those who serve you, those who worship you, and those who will hunt you until your death. Kale rubbed his face with both hands. He felt the weight of those words pressing down on him like chains. I didn't ask for this. I just wanted to find food, maybe something worth trading. And now you're telling me I'm supposed to rule? The alien leaned forward. You do not need to want it, but you cannot escape it. Already the message has spread. Armies will rise, priests will bow, and warlords will come with fire. You will be forced to choose, either run until they catch you or stand and accept the crown you hold in your hand. Kyle stared at the sword. Its rusty surface had changed slightly. Though still chipped, faint patterns of light moved across, the blade like living runes. He felt its weight, not just in his hands but in his chest. It was as if the weapon itself carried history, burden, and expectation. He whispered, "The weight of a crown." The alien nodded. Yes, the weight no one else can carry now but you. Before Kale could answer, the sky above roared. Ships broke through the clouds, their engines glowing like fire. They were not mercenary crafts. These were sleek vessels, painted in colors of silver and blue. Kyle tensed, ready to run again, but the alien placed a hand on his shoulder. Do not fear. These are not hunters. These are the loyal. The ships landed on the cracked ground near the ruins. Out stepped armored figures, tall aliens with glowing emblems on their chests. They knelt the moment they saw the sword in Kale's hand. One of them, their leader, removed his helmet and bowed deeply. My emperor, the alien said in a deep, respectful voice. We have waited for this day. The blade has spoken. The throne is yours. Kyle's mouth went dry. No, he whispered. Not me, you've made a mistake. But the aliens did not rise. They remained on one knee, eyes lowered as if Kale already ruled them. For the first time in his life, people looked at him not as a drifter, not as a scavenger, but as someone greater, someone meant to lead. The old alien leaned close and whispered, This is the beginning. You cannot hide from it now. Kyle looked at the sword, then at the kneeling soldiers. His heart pounded. He wanted to deny it, to walk away, to drop the blade and never see it again. But deep inside he felt a pull, a strange, heavy truth that whispered he was no longer free. The weight of the crown had already settled on his shoulders. And somewhere far away, Warlord Veyrath prepared his fleets, swearing that this so-called emperor would never rise. Kale could hardly breathe as the kneeling soldiers swore loyalty to him. The cracked ground of the ruins felt heavier than any throne. The old alien at his side looked calm, almost proud, while Kale felt only panic. I'm not your emperor, Kale whispered. You've made a mistake. But the soldiers remained still, heads lowered. Their leader, a tall alien with silver-blue armor, finally raised his eyes. The blade does not lie. It has chosen. Whether you wish it or not, you are now the emperor. Kale wanted to argue, but deep inside he knew words would change nothing. He was trapped between a life he understood and a destiny he never asked for. Far away across the stars, news spread like wildfire. The ancient signal that carried Kale's claim reached planets, space stations, and hidden bases. For some, it was a call to hope. For others, it was a threat. On the world of Dravok Prime, Warlord Veyrath watched the message flicker across his warship's screen. His massive figure leaned forward, his claws gripping the arms of his iron throne. His commanders stood silent, waiting for his rage. The Emperor returns? Veyrath growled. His voice echoed through the chamber. No, the Empire belongs to me. I kept its memory alive when all others forgot. No human scavenger will steal my crown. His eyes blazed as he stood towering over his officers. Gather the fleets. Send word to every mercenary, every outlaw. Find this so-called emperor. Bring me his head, or burn the stars around him. The officers bowed quickly, terrified by his fury. Veyrath had crushed countless rivals before. He would crush this one too. Back on the ruined planet, Kale was taken aboard the silver-blue ships of the loyal soldiers. From the windows he saw the city shrinking below, the ruins becoming small shapes swallowed by clouds. His stomach tightened. He had lived on the ground all his life, but now he was being pulled into a galaxy-wide storm. The old alien sat beside him. "My name is Orin," he said quietly. "I was a keeper of the blade. It was my duty to wait until the day the true emperor returned." Kyle stared at him. "And you think that's me? I don't even know how to fight, let alone rule an empire." "The blade does not choose wrongly," Orin replied. "It has bound itself to you. That bond cannot be broken." Kale shook his head. "I'm not ready. I don't want this." Orin's glowing eyes softened. "Greatness is never wanted. It is carried." The soldier's leader entered the chamber then, removing his helmet once more. His skin was a dark shade of bronze, his eyes steady and disciplined. "I am Commander Relin," he said. "My unit swore loyalty to the Empires, returned generations ago. Now that you are here, we will protect you with our lives." Kale looked down at the sword, still resting across his lap. The glowing runes shifted faintly as if listening. He sighed. "Protect me? From what? From who?" Relin's expression darkened. "From those who will come to destroy you. Warlord Veyrath has ruled these sectors for decades. He will not allow your return to threaten his power. His fleets are vast, his soldiers ruthless. Even now he prepares for war." Kyle leaned back against the seat, his mind racing. He had always thought of himself as small, just a drifter trying to stay alive. But now powerful armies were rising because of him. His hands gripped the sword tightly. "So what happens now?" Relan answered firmly. "Now you must choose. You can run, though the galaxy will hunt you. Or you can claim the crown that is already yours and stand against your enemies." Kyle closed his eyes. He wanted to run. He wanted to wake up tomorrow on some quiet world, with no fleets, no empires, and no warlords. But deep inside, he knew running would only bring more death, for himself and for anyone who tried to protect him. Meanwhile, on distant worlds, whispers grew louder. Some alien races sent emissaries preparing to seek the Emperor's favor. Others declared Kyle a fraud and rallied their armies to Veyrath's banner. Entire star systems began to divide, half in hope, half in fear. Back aboard the ship, Kyle spent hours staring out the window at the endless stars. He thought of the weight of the sword, the strange power it carried, and the lives already drawn into his path. He did not feel like an emperor. He felt like a man lost in a storm. But storms did not wait. Without warning, alarms blared across the ship. Red lights flashed and Relan rushed to the control room. Kale followed, sword in hand, heart pounding. Through the wide window of the bridge, he saw them, dark shapes cutting through space. Dozens of warships, black and jagged, surrounding them like predators. Veyrath's mercenaries had found him. Relan shouted orders. "Shields up, weapons ready." Kale gripped the sword. The runes along its blade glowed brighter, as if sensing danger. He didn't know how or why, but he felt the blade pulsing with energy, as if urging him to stand. "Why are they after me?" Kale muttered. "I didn't ask for this." Orin's voice was steady. "Because you are more than you believe. Because the galaxy cannot ignore its emperor." Outside, the enemy ships lit up with fire. Beams of energy streaked across space, crashing into Relan's vessel. The deck shook, sparks flying from the walls. Soldiers rushed to their stations, voices raised, determination hard in their eyes. Kale stood frozen, the sword glowing in his hands. The weight of the crown pressed harder than ever. This was not just about him anymore. The galaxy itself was moving because of him, for better or worse. And as the first battle began, Kale realized the truth. His enemies were rising, and they would not stop until either he stood as Emperor or he fell into forgotten dust. The ship trembled as enemy fire rained down. Kyle gripped the glowing sword, his knuckles white as alarm screamed through the bridge. Relan barked orders, his soldiers working quickly to keep shields strong and weapons firing back. But Kale could see it in their eyes, fear. They were loyal, but they were outnumbered. "This is madness," Kale muttered. "Why are they risking everything for me? I'm just one man." Orin, the old alien, stood steady beside him. "You are not one man now. You are the symbol of what was lost, and symbols are worth fighting for." Kale stared at him. "A symbol? I can't win battles with that." But then something strange happened. The sword pulsed in his hands, brighter than ever before. Its runes lit up the entire bridge with a steady glow. Suddenly, the crew stopped shouting, their eyes fixed on Kyle, calm spreading across their faces. The panic faded, replaced with determination. Relan turned toward him. "My Emperor, give the order. Guide us." Kale froze. Him? Give orders? He had never commanded anyone, but looking around he saw every soldier waiting, every eye trusting him. He swallowed hard, then raised the sword high. "Stand strong," Kale shouted. His voice shook at first but grew louder. "We will not break. We will not run. We fight together, and we live together." The crew roared in answer. Their hands flew faster over controls, their weapons fired more precisely, and their shields flared brighter. Kale felt the change. Their will was linked with his, and somehow the sword carried that unity across the ship. The enemy warships pressed closer, but Relan's forces fought with new strength. One by one, the black vessels fell, exploding into fiery clouds. When the last ship fled into the darkness, cheers filled the bridge. Kale lowered the sword slowly, breathing hard. His heart pounded in his chest, but for the first time he felt something shift inside him. He was not only a drifter anymore. He was leading, even if he didn't mean to. Relan saluted him. "You gave them hope, my Emperor. That is more powerful than any weapon." Kyle shook his head, though his lips curved in a small, uncertain smile. "Hope doesn't win wars. We need allies. We need ships. We need people who believe in more than stories." Orin leaned on his staff, his glowing eyes, thoughtful. And that, human, is how empires are forged. Not through fear, but through unity. The days that followed were filled with decisions Kale never thought he would make. Relan's ship carried him to loyalist colonies, hidden settlements that had waited centuries for the Emperor's return. When Kale arrived holding the blade, entire crowds bowed before him. Children sang old songs, elders wept with joy, and soldiers pledged their lives to him. Kale felt overwhelmed. He wanted to tell them he wasn't ready, that he was still just Kyle the Wanderer. But each time, the blade glowed faintly, and their faith deepened. It was as if the sword itself carried proof of his destiny. On one world, miners who had been enslaved by Veyrath's forces rose in rebellion after hearing of the Emperor's return. Kale traveled there with Relan's soldiers. At first he tried to stay in the background, but the people begged for his guidance. With the sword raised, he led them through the dusty tunnels. They fought back, and with Kale at the front, their courage grew unbreakable. When the battle ended, the miners lifted him on their shoulders, chanting, "Emperor! Emperor!" Kale's chest tightened. He had not planned this, but it was happening. Meanwhile, Warlord Veyrath's fury burned hotter. Reports of Kale's victories reached him daily. Colonies were breaking free, soldiers were defecting, and the name of the Emperor spread like wildfire. "This human dares to steal my stars," Veyrath roared, slamming his fist into his throne. "No more games. Prepare the Armada. If the galaxy believes he is their savior, then I will show them despair." His fleets expanded across sectors, enslaving more worlds, crushing any who whispered Kale's name. But the harder he struck, the stronger Kale's legend became. Kale's journey was not only battles. He spent nights in long councils with Relan. Orin and other leaders who joined him. They spread maps across tables, arguing strategies. Kyle listened more than he spoke, but when he finally gave his opinion, people listened carefully. His words were simple, but they carried honesty. "We know. Can't fight like them," Kale said one night. "Veyrath rules with fear. If we do the same, then nothing changes. We must be different. We fight for each other. We fight so no one kneels again." Orin smiled faintly. "Spoken like a true emperor." Kyle sighed. "Spoken like a man who doesn't want more children growing up the way I did, alone and hungry." Those words spread among his followers. People repeated them in markets, in camps, in hidden strongholds. Kyle's vision became their vision, and slowly the fragments of the old empire began to gather again. In the quiet hours, Kale often sat alone, staring at the blade. It still looked rusty in places, chipped and old, yet it carried the strength of countless generations. He wondered if it chose him by mistake. But then he remembered the faces of those who believed in him, the miners who cheered, the soldiers who fought harder with him at their side, the children who smiled when he raised the sword. Perhaps the blade had not chosen wrongly after all. Still, he could feel the storm building. Every victory drew him closer to a final clash with Veyrath. The thought filled him with fear, but also with determination. For the first time in his life, Kale no longer felt like a drifter. He was something else, something greater. Not because of the sword, but because people needed him to be. The Empire was not yet reborn, but the fire had been lit. Kyle, once a lonely wanderer, was now forging an empire, not of gold and power, but of unity and hope. Everywhere Kale's name spread, battles followed. Colonies rose in rebellion, soldiers deserted Veyrath's armies, and the old loyalists gathered under the banner of the rusty sword. To Kale, it felt unreal. Just weeks ago, he was a scavenger in the ruins of a dead city. Now entire fleets moved because of him. But he also knew one truth: this could not last forever. The warlord would not stop. One night, as Kyle stood on the balcony of a captured fortress, Orin came to him. The old alien's glowing blue eyes reflected the starlight. "The time is close," Orin said. "Veyrath gathers his full armada. He will come with all his strength." Kyle gripped the sword, now glowing faintly at his side. "And if we lose?" he asked quietly. "Then the galaxy falls into chains for another 1,000 years," Orin replied. "But if we win, the Empire rises again, stronger than before." Kale looked out at the stars. Fear twisted in his chest, but beneath it, a strange fire burned. He no longer fought for himself. He fought for every miner who wanted freedom, for every child who hoped for a better future, and for every soldier who stood at his side. The final battle came in the empty void near the shattered world of Deiros. Kyle's fleet, still small compared to Veyrath's, formed a tight circle around him. Old ships repaired by loyalists, mining freighters turned into war carriers, and sleek vessels of the silver-blue soldiers, all stood ready. Their shields flickered, their weapons hummed, and their crews watched the stars in silence. Then the darkness opened. Veyrath's armada poured out of hyperspace, dozens upon dozens of massive warships, black and jagged, blotting out the starlight. Their guns glowed red. Their engines roared like thunder. At the center of them all was Veyrath's flagship, a giant fortress of steel shaped like a predator's skull. On Kale's bridge, alarms rang. Relin stood firm, giving orders to hold formation. Orin placed a hand on Kale's shoulder. "This is the moment," the old alien said softly. "The Empire lives or dies tonight." Kale raised the blade high. Its rusty surface shone brighter than ever before, runes blazing like fire. His voice carried across the ship, across every channel, to every ally. "Listen to me. We are not here for thrones or crowns. We are here because no one should live in fear. Veyrath rules with chains. We fight for freedom, we fight for each other, we fight for tomorrow. A roar of voices answered him across the fleet. Soldiers, miners, pilots all shouted in unity. The Empire was not yet reborn, but its heart was beating again. Then the battle began. Space lit up with fire. Veyrath's ships rained destruction, their red beams slicing through the dark. Kyle's fleet fought back fiercely, but the difference in numbers was clear. One loyalist ship exploded, then another. The deck under Kale's feet shook as their shields strained against the storm. On the enemy flagship, Veyrath stood tall, watching with a cruel smile. "See how weak he is," he growled. "A boy with a sword cannot stop me." But then, something unexpected happened. As Kale raised the blade again, the runes flared, sending out a wave of light. It spread across his fleet, strengthening shields, sharpening weapons, and filling hearts with courage. Pilots who had been afraid now fought with fearless skill. Crews who were exhausted now burned with energy. Relin shouted, "It's working! The blade is binding us together." Kale felt it too. It was not just his own will. The sword carried the unity of everyone who believed in him. Every shout, every hope, every dream, they all poured into him, and the blade answered. But Veyrath was not finished. His flagship moved forward, firing blasts so powerful they tore through Kale's lines. Whole squadrons vanished in fire. "Bring him to me," Veyrath roared. His ship unleashed a spear of red energy aimed directly at Kale's vessel. Kale raised the blade instinctively. Light burst from it, colliding with the red spear. For a moment, the two forces pushed against each other. Darkness against light, fear against hope. The pressure shook every ship, every star in sight. Kale gritted his teeth. His arms trembled, but he shouted with all his strength, "We will not fall." The blade blazed brighter than ever, and the red spear shattered, exploding into harmless sparks. Across the fleet, cheers erupted. For the first time, Veyrath's confident smile cracked. Kyle knew the battle would not end until he faced Veyrath himself. Guided by the blade, his ship pressed forward through the chaos. Enemy vessels tried to block him, but Relin's fighters cleared the path. Finally, Kale's vessel reached the predator-shaped flagship. He stepped onto a landing bay with Relin and Orin at his side. The doors opened, revealing the warlord waiting. Veyrath was massive, taller than any human, his armor black as night, his eyes burning with fury. He raised a giant axe that glowed with red energy. "So you are the so-called Emperor," Veyrath growled. "A child with a broken blade. I will end your story here." Kale lifted the rusty sword. "I didn't choose this, but I will fight for them, for all who believe." The clash shook the ship. Veyrath's axe struck like thunder, Kale's sword answering with blinding light. Sparks flew as steel and energy collided. Veyrath was stronger, but Kale was not alone. He felt the will of his people flowing through the blade. Every loyalist, every rebel, every believer, they were with him. Step by step, Kale pushed back. With a final strike, the blade cut through the warlord's weapon, shattering it into fragments. Light flared, and Veyrath fell to his knees, defeated. Kale stood over him, chest heaving, the blade glowing in triumph. "This empire will no longer belong to fear," he said firmly. Veyrath's roar echoed once. Then silence filled the hall. When Kyle returned to his fleet, the stars themselves seemed brighter. News of Veyrath's fall spread across the galaxy in days. Worlds that had suffered under his rule now raised banners of hope. Old loyalists declared the empire reborn. But Kyle did not sit on a golden throne. Instead, he stood before his people and spoke simply. "I am no ruler of chains. I am not above you. I stand with you. Together we build an empire of unity, not fear." The cheers shook the heavens. Kyle, once a drifter with nothing but hunger and dust, was now the emperor returned. Not because of power or blood, but because he carried the courage to stand when no one else could. And though the blade shone in his hand, Kale knew the truth. The empire's greatest strength was not the sword. It was the people who believed.